Welcome to the All Metal Mode podcast with your host, Michael Hare. Tune in every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern with co-host Gypsy Jules, and every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern with Matt Hoffman as we talk to guests, discuss metal detectors, equipment, and everything treasure related. Feel free to join in the discussion in the chat room during the show, and please, if you like what you hear, we'd appreciate you taking a moment, hit that like button, and share the link with your friends. We hope you enjoy the show. The All Metal Mode podcast starts right now.
Hey everybody, this is Mike here, and you're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast. I am the super host, and then Tuesday nights, of course, Matt. He's a mediocre host. He joins me on Tuesday nights. What a jerk. For those of you who don't know, that would just tune in, understand me and Matt joke with each other a lot. So any chance I can get a jab in there, I sure get them in, Matt.
Well, I mean, you got to be able to claim you're good at something because we know it's not metal detecting.
Right,
so.
Right. Something. I'm a good host. A fair host. We'll say fair host. Yeah. So you've been getting out detecting a lot, right?
Well, I was. Yeah, I was.
Right.
Yes. So the Arctic blast showed up, and now. But I was really thinking about if I could just acquire a snowblower. I'm pretty sure that. Although I wonder if you're out snow blowing the snow in a park, if someone would call the cops on you. And they might come down and have a talk with you. But that was my plan, was to get a snowblower and go to the park and snowblow the park so I could do some metal detecting. Because I'm sure the ground isn't frozen under there. But
you guys have had some real cold temperatures, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. It's been brutally cold the past couple days. Actually, my son was off school today because it was so cold. But I'm pretty sure that the amount of snow on the ground has insulated it from the really super cold. So I'd be willing to bet if I went out, kicked some snow around, and stuck a shovel in the ground that I could probably get right through it.
Maybe. I think you should just wait till that's what this show's about tonight. We're going to talk about things to keep you busy, and we are not going to bring up going out and snow blowing parks so you can metal detect. That is not going to be on the list, man. We are not going to tell listeners that's something.
Yeah, I don't know that it's, like I said, I wouldn't say it's a great idea, but man, it's been really crossing my mind as a seriously potential one that I would consider.
Right. I just got to get out. Of course, the kids and everything. I've got a lot of headphones to build. I have just been, Randy has not been sleeping. He wears me out, but good times. So tonight we're going to talk about things to keep you busy. During the winter, during the snow and everything else, for freezing temperatures. And, of course, if you got any questions or anything, jump in chat, ask away. You can ask anything. Doesn't have to be on topic. We would like it to be metal detector related. That's about it. But before we get started, I do want to say something really cool. So my good friend Greg Weems in Mississippi is joining our team. So he's going to replace Matt because Matt's no good at being a coach. No, I'm kidding. There I go again, Matt. There I go again. Did I lose you? Matt, did you hang up on me? Oh, man.
Oh, the dead silent air.
Oh, no, there he is. There he is. Greg's going to, something that's really been, we haven't had many guests. I've just been run ragged. I love doing the podcast. I'm not burned out on doing the podcast. I'm burned out on trying to find guests and scheduling them in and reaching out to people only to not hear back and try to hunt people down. And I've gotten really lazy at it. I've really gotten burned out on it. So Greg's going to join the team and he's going to help us find guests. He already has a guest he's talking to. I don't know if he's got him scheduled in for a date yet, but perfect job for Greg. Greg's a very he's a little social butterfly, Matt. He loves talking metal detecting, talking to different people, and I'm not very social. I'll be honest, I'm not. I'm not great at making friends. I'm not good at that. So yeah, Greg's going to join the team, and he's going to start getting us some guests and lining up some shows, and hopefully we can get back on a better schedule. I still want to do at least 1 or 2 shows a month where we just talk metal detecting, where we don't have a guest. I really like these shows, but I think too many of them, and we're boring. I think if I start talking about the Rudis again, people are just going to stop listening because I love it. I just it's what's on my mind lately. It's what I've been using, and I know I talk about it too much. But yeah. So tonight, let's talk about what you can do to stay busy in the winter. What do you do, Matt? You're up there in that snow.
Well, I start by coming up with silly ideas of how I'm going to get to a park detecting. Now, I'll tell you what you should not do. Most absolutely should not do is you should not have a 30-30, an Impact, a Rudis, a Cruiser, an AT Pro, headphones and wireless modules and stuff sitting in your car in Arctic freezing temperatures.
Yes, very true. Drag them out of the car, out of the truck, get them in. It's a great time to clean everything up, remove all your batteries if you're not going to be using them. I mean, down here in Texas, I don't have to worry about that. I'm sitting around in shorts and t-shirt today. But when you're in places like Ohio, you need to do that kind of stuff. Make sure you pull the batteries out. I don't know how many times I've talked to somebody who left batteries in and they've leaked and caused problems or completely ruined the metal detector. It happens. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine, it happened to like last year. They forgot to take the batteries out, and they leaked and messed up his detector.
Yeah,
luckily enough,
it's funny though, because a lot of times you think, batteries leaking. Oh, they got to be in there for a long time and all this and the other. But I'll tell you what's incredibly hard on, especially lithium-ion batteries, is super cold temperatures. When it's cold out, they don't work well. Just the way that those batteries are obviously designed. But B, that can really impact the life of that battery, letting them sit in temperatures that are sub-zero temperatures for extended periods of time. And I know I need to go out to my car and get a couple things out of there.
So you're guilty. We're doing the show on this, and you're guilty of it.
I'm guilty. See, I'm the poster child of what not to do.
Yeah, just listen. Let's just do the Matt show, and you listen to what he says, and then you'll know what not to do. Is that what you're saying? That's
exactly right.
What do you have in your car?
Maybe a few of those detectors I mentioned, minus not the Rudis. The Rudis is sitting right here in my, it's hanging up in my office.
Oh, good Lord. You actually have detector, and you guys have been below zero, haven't you?
Yeah, and I guarantee I may have destroyed my 30-30 battery. I don't so much care about the other batteries because the other ones are not rechargeable ones. They're just batteries.
Oh,
now, I do care in the sense that that's super hard on alkaline batteries as well, and you may potentially cause stuff to leak. Obviously, they're not rated to hang out in temperatures like that, and they're all brand new batteries, so any of the ones that are out there are probably not going to be working so well anyhow. But I'm more concerned about my 30-30 battery, and so leave it to me to tell you what not to do. That's the absolute worst thing you can do is let them sit out there.
Do we need to take a break so you can go pull detectors out of your vehicle?
Actually, you know what? That's a good idea. Give me 5 minutes. I'm going to leave you for 5 minutes. I'm going to go out to my car, and I'm going to go grab my detectors and bring them in the house.
I promise we'll talk about you the whole time you're gone.
Okay. I'm sure you will. I'm not proud of myself. I'm just coming clean here and being honest.
Right. Oh, you're a hot mess. For those of you that don't know, Matt has spent like the last week rearranging his like 200 Nerf guns. How many Nerf guns you got? Or did you leave me already?
I tried to count them, even though they're numbered and lettered. Now it's hard to say because some hooks have multiple of the same gun on it. So there's upwards of 130, 140, somewhere around there.
But he's left his CTX and some other detectors in the below zero weather. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay, go get your detectors, man.
But
Jesus.
hey, the Rudis is in the house, so
well, that's
all
good.
right, give me 5 minutes. I'll be back. I'm gonna go take care of this problem now that I've incriminated and told on myself.
Right. Make sure you mute so we don't have to hear you grunting and stuff in the background. My favorite joke. Go away so I can talk about you. We were doing a show. This is one of the first shows we're doing, and like I'm trying to talk, and I can hear Matt in the background going, like it sounded totally wrong. And after the show, like it was right at the end of the show, and after the show I called him and I'm like, man, what were you doing? Like you were grunting and stuff, like you were pleasuring yourself. That's what it sounded like. I'm sorry to say it, but it sounded like he was pleasuring himself. And he's like, oh, I thought I was on mute. He was out in his driveway. He was talking. We're doing a show, and he's out in his driveway picking out weeds out of his driveway. Yeah, so that was interesting. That's why he's only a mediocre host. That's why. But yeah, so as you can see, Matt's not a good one to. He's definitely not going to lecture you or give you a hard time if you don't follow the rules of what to do in the winter, because, here it's been below zero there and he's pulling his out of the vehicle. Nice job. Real nice job. But, yeah, good times. See, we've got Joey King in. Who else we got in? Greg's in. Jason S. Steve Adams. Yeah, that's about it for tonight. It's kind of a slow night. Good times, though. I think, yeah, Greg messaged me and said Joey's going to be one of our guests, so that's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. If that's who you sent me, I don't know, you sent that as I was getting ready for the podcast. Yeah, awesome. You told me a little bit about you, Joey, and looking forward to doing that show. And we're looking to get back on track, get more guests and stuff on, and so you don't just listen to me and Matt or me and Gypsy on Monday nights, and good times. What else? I know one winter in Ohio. Of course, I live in Texas now. 1 year in Ohio, something I kind of did. We had a really bad winter. And I don't sell my finds, but I was just curious of if I was to put a value on my finds. And so I used, of course, the internet, but also eBay to see what a lot of the coins had sold for and stuff. I'd found something like 120 silver coins that year. And altogether, at a what I would consider a very conservative price, a lot of my relics and buttons and stuff I didn't even put a price on because I didn't know. I'd found about $700 worth of stuff. And that was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of time in doing that. And I'll tell you what come about that. Something really cool that come out of that was I'd found 2 coins that were semi-key date. I'd found a barber that was worth, I want to say I'd seen him selling on eBay in that condition about $40, if I remember correctly. And another coin, I don't recall what it was. It was another silver coin. I want to say it was a seeded dime that was worth some money. So, that's something fun you can do is go through and try to put a value to your yearly finds. Another thing that I would highly recommend, I know so many people who go out and detect, they find killer stuff, and they literally put it in boxes or piles. Organize that stuff. I'm a field hunter. when I'm in Ohio, you've all heard, I love relic hunting in Ohio in the fields where old houses and stuff were. Take those finds and get little display cases. Put the location, even if you hide it under the felt, tape it to the backside, even if it's just coordinates. And so you know where those come from. And look, I don't sell my finds, but someday if somebody wants to sell my finds, they can look up where they came from and and sometimes the context is what makes something valuable. I could have, I've got a couple big cases from a town that was gone by I want to say 1831 or 1832 in Ohio. And it was a significant town. It started around 1795, if I remember correctly. And so I've got two big cases, and I would suspect that there's the value, like if those would ever be sold, that there's more value knowing that it came from that town and not knowing where they came from. So by doing that kind of stuff, it doesn't even matter about value, but it is nice to know and to be able to look back. And I'm guilty of it. I do the same thing. I've got piles of stuff that never made it to a case. I hunted a site and only a couple good finds, and you don't put it on. You don't put 2 finds in a case, but definitely keeping your stuff organized. And I'll tell you what, the better you're organized, the better off you are. I'll give you a really good example. This summer I was going through a bucket of finds, and a small bucket.
Were they all iron?
No. Don't be a jerk. Don't pop in and be a jerk. Come on, man. But it was just dog tags and just I'd have to look through. There's a couple chains and I not junk, nothing junk, but just kind of odd. What is it? And odd things that didn't make it into a case, kind of stuff. Some buttons and stuff like that. Well, anyhow, I pulled out. I was looking through it, and I found a World War I or World War II. Now I'd have to look it up. Dog tag, and I remember when I found it. I can't remember where I was at. I remember when it's World War I dog tag. I remember when I found it thinking, oh, a tool tag. I'm from the Dayton, Ohio area, and there's a lot of machine shops and stuff, and you come across a lot of tool tags. Tool tag is you got your tool tag, you go borrow a tool from the tool room, you give them your tool tag, and they hold on to it until you give the tool back. At these bigger machine shops and stuff. So I found this tag, and I just assumed it was a tool tag. Well, when I looked at it closer, and I found it a couple years ago, it's a dog tag, and I wish I knew where I found that. I would do anything to remember where I was at, and for the life of me, I can't. And most of my finds, I can. I can tell you where I found them, but the better you keep track, and if you find stuff that you don't know what it is, put it aside. Put it on a piece of paper on a bench somewhere of where you found it, and put it aside. I think something to look at and think about. Nobody does it better than Greg Shipley. We've had him as a guest on here, and he's a heck of a detectorist, historian, amateur archaeologist, and he will find these crumpled up bits of nothing, and he'll tell you what it is. And a lot of times it's stuff that most of us will look at and just say, oh, it's just a piece of junk. And here it's off of a Indian trade gun from 17 something to like he will research and find that stuff out. Be careful throwing stuff away. I'll tell you a funny story I like to tell all the time. And I know I've told it on here, is I had a buddy that was finding the fuses, the cannon fuses. You know what I'm talking about, Matt? They're brass.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've never found one, but I've seen them.
He got on a site where he's finding them pretty much by the bucketfuls, and he's throwing them away because he doesn't know what they are. And last time I looked, I think a crumpled up, one that's bent and stuff goes for about $10, and a good one goes for about 20. And I'm not saying he would sell them. I'm not saying, hey, you could sell those. But what I'm saying is he's literally throwing away $20 bills. I mean, heck, if you're, so put that stuff aside until the winter and find some books, find some resources, and research that stuff out and see what it is before you throw it away. I've heard of some really cool stuff being thrown away. I'm sure I've done it myself over the years. So, winter's a great time to do all that and display your finds, find cases, but make sure you don't lose where you found that stuff.
Yeah, that's that I think that goes a long way. I mean, as far as not only do you have the find and what you found, but where you found it. I mean, the history of the piece is a lot of times more the value of it than a lot of cases of what it is.
Right, where it was found,
Yeah, and that makes huge differences.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially even if you're not even if you have no intentions of ever selling your stuff. And I know Mike has jumped on my case over the past year and a half, whatever, about the same thing. And because I'm a slacker when it comes to I do label a lot of stuff and keep it organized, but then I got a lot of stuff that's just randomly thrown around in different bins and buckets and all kinds of places. And so, yeah, I'm guilty myself once again. This should be the "Don't Do Everything Matt Does" show, is what we should just rename this.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm not perfect at it. Believe me, I don't always do the right stuff or do as good as I should. But that's what we're talking about tonight. Do it. Steve said I keep all my finds in site-specific containers. Yeah, do something like that. I mean, you can buy those cardboard. I mean, they're black cardboard. You don't know they're cardboard, but they're kind of fancy looking, black, and then they've got the green or red mats in them. I mean, you can get some of those, the smaller ones, for a couple bucks a piece. And they've got like the green felt in them for your stuff, or the white felt, or the red felt. I don't know if it's felt. I'm saying felt, and that's not what it is. It's like what is? Do you know what I'm talking about, Matt?
Sure, it could be felt. I know what you're talking about. I don't know if it's felt though.
Yeah, it's not felt, but anyhow, you can get those for a couple bucks. They got pins in them to keep the lids on. They're glass. They've got a glass top. I mean, you can get fancy stuff. I'm just saying, even if you just have a handful of finds, 3 or 4 finds, it's worth putting in a couple dollar box and displaying them. And, like I said, tape a thing with coordinates inside so you know where it came from. I think that's a brilliant idea, or write it up. Write up what was there, what kind of site it was even. But I will usually at least put in coordinates or something, especially since I'm a field hunter, and you go to the coordinates, at least show you that there was a house there in that field at one time. But it's a good time to do all that. And so just do exactly opposite of what Matt does. Do you clean your detectors in the winter?
Generally, usually, yes. Now, right now, after I, that's the one thing I do actually do that it makes me happy when they're nice and shiny and clean. But there's just about every one of my detectors is super, super muddy right now. That just they look like hell. But I do have them out of my car now. They're also. I'm going to admit there was an E-Track in the car, too. I forgot that was up there.
So what all was in the car? In the zero?
So there was a 3030, a Cruiser, an Impact, an E-Track, a AT Pro, and some pinpointers.
Oh, Lord. Matt.
I know.
Oh man!
And the thing, like, I truthfully, I did have plans to bring them in before it got super cold.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, man, I'm getting out detected. I'm just leaving them in. And then I just didn't do it. And then I'm like, I'm going out detected. I'm going to leave them in. And yeah, so I sit there and tell myself I'm going back out. And even if I was, I should have brought them in regardless.
Right.
Like, it didn't even matter. Like, they shouldn't be sitting out there. So, I'm definitely guilty. But I do like to, in the wintertime, I do like to dismantle all my detectors, take all the, the shafts apart, take everything apart, and just make sure everything's cleaned up. And, I'll tell you one thing. In this past spring, I went out detecting. I think it was one of the first times I went out, and the weather had warmed up just enough, and the detector sat in my car, and I got to a park with my buddy, and it had been a few days since I had looked at my detector, and I pulled it out, and there was literally plants growing out of from under the coil cover on my 3030 on the 17-inch coil. There was, I got a picture of it somewhere. I have to see what I did. There was green plants like growing up out from so there was so much dirt and debris and whatnot, and obviously seeds of some sort had made it way down in there.
Oh my God, man!
That there was plants growing out of the coil cover. So obviously cleaning your stuff is advisable, but
you should have seen how long you could keep those growing over the winter, since it's winter and you won't be out for a couple months probably. That's what I'd have seen if I could have kept them growing.
Yeah, it was. I was dying laughing when I saw that. I'm like, man, I'm a wreck. I don't know what to say about myself. But
real quick, I want to say, Steve Adams says he bought 100 tie-on paper tags for the bigger items. That's really smart. Iron Ray said I use different size stackable drawers. That's a great idea. For sure. And that was definitely where I was going to head, is make sure you clean out, give it a good cleaning, clean out your coil covers and all that, take them, pop them off, clean out from underneath it. Stuff does get in there. Obviously, Matt's growing plants in there in his. Another thing I recommend, if you use headphones or if it's got an outlet or a jack, clean that. I have contact cleaner. You can get a bottle of contact cleaner for a couple bucks. Put some on a Q-tip and clean those out. You'd be amazed at how much dirt can end up in those. I'll tell you a story. Years ago when the E-Track was huge, when it was first come out, and everybody's using the E-Track, and then Explorers were still popular. I started building them right when the E-Track come out. It was about when I started building headphones, and I would get people all the time, hey, Mike, my headphones are cutting out real bad. And they were having issues. Well, the E-Track, with that up in the air like it is in the back, it likes to collect dirt. And I would always say, get you some alcohol, don't drench it, or prefer contact cleaner, put it on a Q-tip, and go down into your port. And I never, after that, I don't think anybody ever had an issue. I don't think anybody ever sent a pair in it that it was my headphones. It was the port. It collects dirt like you wouldn't believe. And I did have a friend who was having all kinds of issues, and he cleaned it. He got a bunch of stuff out of there on his E-Track. He was still having issues, and only with my headphones. And then one day he was out with another pair. Hey, quit using them, because they were cutting out and they were scratchy, and what a pair of headphones sounds like when you're not getting a good connection. And he was out with a whole different pair of headphones, and they started doing it. Well, come to find out, his jack on his E-Track was going bad. He had to send it in and get it fixed. But yeah, so clean those. Take a minute to clean any of those ports and stuff. And if you switch coils a lot, do the same with those. Clean them out. Clean that stuff out, and put it away. Make sure you take the batteries out and all that. Research. That's a great time to do research.
Yeah, it's probably the best time to do research, because
right.
You can't get out detective, and you might as well be researching where you're going to go when you can go out. So,
when I lived in Ohio, it was nothing for me to overlay a whole county over the winter. And then I'm sorry, I'm clicking on this link Iron Ray just put up, but it was nothing for me. And then have the phone numbers if they're available, their address where they lived, any information I could find on them, the site, that kind of stuff. And that way you've got it. He sent me, the plastic drawers, like the 5-drawer wide tower. He put a link in. I love those. Great way to keep your finds and stuff, for sure. But, and then once the weather started warming up and everything else, I'd start calling. I'd have all the information I needed, sometimes for hundreds of sites. Different counties, if I was going back home to visit mom, I'd have some there when I could, or at least lined up. But, have everything ready so once the weather does break and you can get back out detecting, you're ready to go.
Yeah, I definitely, I know last year I said to myself, man, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to have all this stuff figured out. And then the next thing I know, it's springtime and I'm out detecting and I'm like, man, I didn't do any of the research that I should have done and should have put time into and could have significantly changed the outcome of my year detecting. Although, I had a pretty decent year overall. I found a lot of good stuff. So, I can't complain. But it would have been nice to have all that stuff lined up and ready to go. And this year, I've got a lot of stuff laid out. I've waiting a little while here to make a lot of phone calls or, go visit some people and have a talk with them. But yeah, definitely, you might as well do it while you can in the wintertime, because if you're not doing nothing else, it's not time. In the summer or spring and summer, you feel like, oh, maybe you're wasting time. You could be out detecting. But if you're like me sitting here, I got at least 8 inches of snow on the ground and it's pretty much Arctic temperatures outside. So, very minimal chance I'm going to find a way to go detecting unless I take a trip to the beach in a vacation.
Right. There you go.
I did find, Mike, I think I sent you a picture of this the other week, but Tim Gendervin and myself were out last summer and trying to track down this old picnic grove on some property that my family actually owns. But he did pull a few silvers out of the wooded area. So you have good indication that there was some stuff there. But I found a dog license. What I thought was a dog license in the woods. It was in terrible, terrible shape. And I kind of chucked it in my bag. I could see a little bit of writing on it, but it sat in there till about a week or so ago now. I pulled it out and I said, man, I need to clean this thing up. And I had my little electrolysis device set up because after a quick scrub, I realized it wasn't going to come clean any other way. Or, I figured worst case, if it gets a little too strong, it might destroy it, but I wasn't going to be able to see anything on it anyhow. So I put that in there. Of course, then I forgot about it. So I was only planning on leaving it in for a short period of time, but I came up there like 4 or 5 hours later up to my kitchen and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot all about this. But luckily I pulled it out and absolutely beautiful. There's a few pits in it, but nice copper dog license from 1927, which is one of the oldest ones I've ever found. So,
what year?
1927.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Stark County dog license. That's impressive. I was curious then. I said to myself, well, I wonder how long they've been issuing dog licenses. Now, around the world in certain places, you do find stuff that goes back to the 1800s. But apparently most of the stuff you generally would find starts coming out like the 30s and 40s. Beyond that, their stuff becomes a little more rare to find them just because there wasn't near as many being issued. But yeah, I was pretty happy with this. That's a nice piece to go in my collection.
Right. Yeah. I think it's a real good idea to clean up finds that you don't know what they put them aside during the summer, until winter or whenever you got time. It doesn't have to be winter. Maybe you're like me, and I'll get out a lot more this winter than I will this summer. It's too hot here in Texas, so now's my metal detecting season, and if I find interesting stuff and things that I'm not sure what they are, put them aside, put a little note with them and where I found it, and then I'll come back to them later and clean them up good and properly. And what's your cleaning methods on different things?
My favorite just go to is first. I mean, obviously depends what it is.
Right,
if
right.
It's something that if it's silver, it just stays the way it is. I don't even bother doing much of anything to it. But copper coins, a lot of them, depending on if they came out of a farm field or not, can be so toasty that there may be nothing that's going to salvage them anyhow.
Right.
I might just toothpick some stuff just in certain cases. But if it's like some of the aluminum and copper tokens and stuff like that that are a little crusty or just got a lot of stuff caked on them, if a simple scrub with a toothbrush won't loosen some of that off of there, then if I'm not too concerned that it may, and I don't think in theory you could destroy a coin with. I wouldn't do anything that I would consider super worthwhile or potentially be extremely valuable. But I don't know. I've been finding that electrolysis works pretty damn well on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't use it on on silver by any means, but and I'm sure you can if you use the right if you got the right medium too. I would think if you used like stainless is I always get my anode and cathode mixed up, but if you use stainless steel like spoon or something, that might leave dark spots on your silver over time that you may not come back out.
You've got to be really careful with stainless. I used to use stainless, but you want to use I can't remember what it's called now for the life of me. If you're going to do electrolysis, research it good.
Yeah,
you got to be really careful because it does put off stuff, which reminds me of a story. A buddy going to a metal detector shop. I'm not going to say who or where or what or anything. And the guy had all these buckets and stuff sitting around bubbling, doing electrolysis and just running away all the time, and the guy got real sick, and he goes, man, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't all them buckets he was doing electrolysis on, because he just had them sitting everywhere in his shop, and he's like, I don't think that's a good idea. I've been doing it for years. Yeah, high carbon. There you go. Thanks, Steve. You can get high carbon rods and stuff, and that's what you want to use. You definitely want to be careful because I'm sure there's not a problem using a stainless fork or spoon out in a ventilated area like outside of your house if you got a little shed or something, and you're not going in there other than to just check on it. But I would research it and I'd do it right. You want to be careful with that kind of stuff. But I like electrolysis a lot. I've used it on buttons, coins. Now I'm talking like really nasty buttons, and I've had silver coins that are almost covered in iron, like they were in some kind of iron container or something. I'll use it just to knock the iron off real quick. My silver coins, they get 99% of them, they get rinsed off gently in the sink. If I've got one that has extraordinary details or something and it's still got stuff in it, you can dab a Q-tip on it. Don't brush it with a Q-tip, dab. But really, I wouldn't even recommend that in most cases. You can really mess up a silver coin quick, especially if it has any value. You're way better off if you find something with value, leave it. Once you find out there's value to it, leave it alone. Send it off to be professionally cleaned and graded. That's what I would recommend.
That's
all
what
day long.
I would definitely say that. Obviously, anything with the potential for value or very high value, for that matter, don't make the mistake of just giving it your best effort. Just, if you really want it cleaned up, send it to someone who is proficient with restoring.
Well, yeah, some of the grading companies do it. There's people out there who restore Civil War buckles and stuff like that. If you got something valuable and it's crumpled up, don't try to undo it unless you know what you're doing and stuff. But your typical things. What I would recommend is don't over clean. That's real simple. Silver coins, it's okay if they're dirty. You're not hurting a value by them having dirt. Go to a coin shop and you'll see coins for sale with dirt on them and stuff. And it's because dirt doesn't hurt the value. Now, micro scratches from cleaning that dirt off.
Micro scratches, however, that's a whole nother story.
Will take huge value off a coin. Now, I'll tell you something I really like. And I've heard the formula changes and it doesn't work as good. And this is for extreme cases. When you're hunting fields in Ohio, they've been exposed to a lot of chemicals over the years, and they can be rough. Don't get me wrong, you can find some that are beautiful, but the rough ones, don't add water. If you find coins out of the fields, copper coins, you add water and it's almost like it almost like it kicks in the fertilizers and stuff, and it eats the coins. Scrape them, do whatever, but coins like copper, large cents that I found that are in really, really bad shape, and I know there's different stuff on the market. I haven't really kept up. MS70 and Deller's Darkner. I have some large cents that when I found them, I soaked them scraped at them, soaked them, scraped at them again, could never get any kind of details off. And what MS70 does is strip the coin, often to the bare copper. And then you take that Deller's Darkner and it'll darken it back up. Now, would I recommend you doing that to anything with any value or anything you can read? No. But in those extreme cases where I never would have been able to find out any other way what kind of date or what coin that was, that's really come in handy. But it's kind of scary when you use it, when you're rubbing a coin with MS70 and you just see everything kind of melting off of it, your gloves are, and you're starting to see shiny copper everywhere. But like I said, that Deller's Darkner, the more you rub it on and the more you rub in it, it'll clean it up. But, it's not good for Indians or other copper coins, but just that. But MS70 works pretty darn good, or it used to. Now, I do know, like I said, I do know that there's some other stuff out there, but research that stuff. Make it fun. It's a great way to keep busy in the winter. I know people who have made display boxes. Heck, in the past, I've even made some display boxes. What else, Matt?
I've never been a huge fan. I've tried it twice with two different machines. And somebody, if you guys use it and it works for you, let me know. I've tried some ultrasonic coin cleaning, trying to clean up some stuff that way with an ultrasonic cleaner, using like the vibrations in the water medium. And I guess both times I've tried it, I've been less than impressed, and to the point where I got rid of the cleaner itself. I didn't find that it worked near as good as I was expecting or thought it might. But it is, it can be a lot gentler method on maybe a more valuable coin, especially a silver potentially than some other stuff. But then again, I don't care to clean my silvers anyhow. I kind of like their character as they come out of the ground, how some of them, 90% of them look fantastic, and then you get them few that are just got so much stuff piled on them, and but I just kind of like to leave them like that. Oh, on Old Bottles, Iron Ray says, that sounds like, damn, I should have thought of that myself.
Steve, that used to be my method. He said, I drop old pennies in olive oil and leave them. Is that okay? I used to, I always liked baby oil. Baby oil seemed a little more, what's the word?
It's a little more gentle on the behind.
No, it's not gentle. It's a little more aggressive. It cleans them a little bit quicker than olive oil. It's a little more aggressive. But I don't think it's a good idea. I really like the scrape method now and cleaning them like that with like a toothpick, because what happens, it usually makes those coins very porous looking. Now, one thing I have done that I've really liked that has worked good is on Indian heads, really bad ones, especially if they have that green corrosion, is hot peroxide, warm-up peroxide. You can do it on the stove or in the microwave till it's boiling, and throw your Indian head penny in there, a really crusty one, and watch the stuff come off of it. Now, sometimes you got to do it 3 or 4 times, but that's a really good, quick method, I think, and I gotta say I've done that to some, and it's the detail's gone, but I don't think peroxide will ever hurt it. If the detail's gone, it was gone anyhow. So that's, to me, is a really good method for Indian heads. Large scents and Indians, if they're not so bad, I'll scrape them with toothpicks. I don't know. I hate that porous look you get with baby oil and olive oil. But how do you clean up large scents and stuff, Matt?
Large scents, well, I'm going to say that I've been hit or miss on large scents. I've tried a lot of different things. My ultimate comeback to and go to is to toothpick them and the peroxide method. And if that doesn't work, then I just leave them be, because sometimes, some of the ones I find are fantastic shape, and other ones are just so piss poor from sitting in a farm field that I don't know that there's anything you could possibly do to them to bring them back to a state that to provide any more detail or give you any better look. But if the toothpick and the peroxide works pretty good. Now, I used to try. I did find what you're saying. I used to stick a lot of stuff in either baby oil or olive oil and try that. But what I found was it seems to make it very porous look into the coin, and I don't know, it almost like it gives me a negative effect that I really wasn't looking for, though. So outside of toothpicking and maybe some hot peroxide, I just leave them be. But what I do want to say is on a sort of another subject, but still in the same tone of this subject. If you were to take a standard clad coin for fun, something fun to do, I found this out when I was drinking one night when I was making some coin rings. But if you take a standard clad quarter or dime, nickel, well, you can do it with a nickel too, but quarter or dime, and you heat it with a torch, red hot, and then you quench it in alcohol. It'll literally take the copper will leach outside of the nickel coating and adhere to the outside of the coin. So it'll literally turn your coin copper colored. And then if you buff it, you'll see that the standard silvery color of the coin is still there, and you can do it. Now, interestingly enough, so I experimented with, if you keep doing that same process, eventually you'll wind up with a hollow shell that won't have any copper really left in the center.
Well, hold on. How did we get on this? And why are you drinking and doing this?
Well, because I found this out by total mistake one time, but it's just an interesting experiment to try if you're curious. What were we talking about cleaning coins? And I found out that don't clean any coin in hot alcohol will not be the answer. Or rubbing alcohol or anything like that. No, my neighbor had given me some kind of, she was making like margaritas or something the one night, and I was making coin rings in my garage, and so I had one, and I was getting a little sauced up, I'm not going to lie, and instead of quenching the coin in water, which is what I was trying to do, I accidentally stuck it in my margarita, and when I pulled it out, it was like a rose color, like a pink color. And I said, man, I don't. And it took me a while to figure out what was going on. But yeah, if you keep doing it, you can essentially make those coins. You can wind up with nothing but the shell of the coin because all the copper will run itself out of the middle of the coin. Now, here's where I'm driving at. Not that it has any real bearing, because I'm sidetracked all the time.
Oh, Lord.
But if you do it with a silver 50-cent piece that's only 40% silver, so after 65 to 70 or whatever they made those, you can essentially get all the copper to come out of those things too, and then pretty much wind up with a pure silver coin.
Interesting. Okay, back on track now.
On track now, huh?
Well, hey, something I wanted to say real quick. I posted a link to where you can buy MS-70. The problem I'm having, I cannot find Deller's Darkener for sale. I found one place and they're sold out. But that is for extreme. You were saying some of the large sensor tore up, but the problem is you wouldn't want to use MS-70 without Deller's Darkener, because what you're going to get is a bright. It's funny because you use MS-70 and it looks horrible. It's copper and a lot of like bright shiny copper. It looks like you've lost all your detail. Then you add that darkener and all of a sudden the details just shoot out at you. I found an 1803 large cent that did all kinds of stuff, including tumbling, and couldn't get it. I took Deller's Darkener to it, and it just, even though it had been tumbled and everything else, you wouldn't have believed how much stuff ended up in the glove of on my hand. And almost copper, and I'm like, oh man, I just completely ruined it. I put that Deller's Darkener on it, and all of a sudden I could see the date clear as day. It's really I mean, it's worn, but it's a very
dark. What is? I've never heard of that stuff, Mike, but I'm almost curious now that you're saying. I wonder if you would get the same result if you took. I don't know if you've ever used liver of sulfur.
No, I have not.
So, like, I'll use that on coin rings. It'll give you a real like good, cool, like darker patina look. But I'm curious what that would do if now I want to try this just to see what would happen on a large cent after some MS-70 and then threw some liver of sulfur on it.
Yeah, there are other darkeners, and I don't know how they work. I know how Deller's works, but good stuff. But it seems like it's hard to find now. But you'd want to use MS-70 with a darkener, and it's amazing. You can and like let's say you want it real dark, or you want it light. You just keep rubbing, keep adding a little bit. And it's really amazing how it works out. But I'm not really finding, let me see. But for those really trashed, yeah, I don't know. You definitely need some kind of darkener with it, but MS-70 works good for that.
I'll tell you another thing, Mike, that I like to do in the wintertime. When I get very bored and I can't detect, I'll go through all my copper pennies and zinc pennies. And let's face it, zinc pennies are pretty much worthless. I don't even know that I consider them to be worth a penny. Half the ones, if you do, and I don't dig many zincs unless I get in an area where the potential for Indian heads and zincs there. Then you're going to dig them. There's no way around it. It happens, but I'll round up all the zinc pennies I've dug over the year, and even if they're just super ugly and half the pennies missing and whatnot, they're very fun to melt down and turn into different stuff because that zinc is super easily meltable with a torch, and you don't get a lot of. You just got the coating of the copper on there, so I take all those and I melt them down, and I'll turn them into little. Like I've made some little like crosses, and I made some other stuff that's pretty cool. And but I mean, it takes quite a few pennies, so you might have to save them for a few years, depending on how many zincs you dig. But at least you get something out of the zinc pennies that were otherwise pretty much you were going to throw out anyhow because they were absolutely worthless. So that's my 2 cents on that.
You need to get us some pictures.
I got a picture of. I'll send you a picture. I'll go take a picture here shortly of. I just found one of these. I made a few different crosses. I found one the other day down in my son's toy box. Shockingly, he must have swiped it last year, the year before, or something, because I hadn't seen it in a long time. But man, it's still in. After you buff those things up, and so you pour them, cast them into whatever you want, and after you buff those up, man, they're beautiful. They look really good, and make some cool stuff.
Oh, that's cool. That's awesome. What else? I'm trying to think what else is good winter projects. I don't know. Sleep. It's nice to catch up on some sleep. I don't know. That's about it. I'd clean my coins, clean my fines, sort everything, put stuff in cases, clean my detectors, remove batteries. I'm trying to think what else we got. You got anything else?
No, but I like to clean up my. It's a good time. Usually in the winter I clean my pinpointers real thoroughly too, because those things. I've always got so much mud and dirt jammed down into like the speaker holes and stuff like that. And just clean those up. Just make sure everything's working. But you know, one thing that I always do is, and we probably already said this, is if I'm not going to be using that stuff for an extended period of time, is take the batteries out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's it's hard enough. And don't ask me why they can't make batteries that don't leak. It's 2019. I would think this is possible. We can send a rocket or an explorer to Mars, but we can't make a battery that won't leak if you let it sit in your detector for 6 months. But yeah, that's the worst. Because some of them too, and it's all batteries. Like it doesn't matter if you buy the cheap. Actually, I find some of the cheaper ones don't leak near as much as some of the more expensive ones. But that can be devastating to a battery, especially if it's got internal the prongs where it has to. The connection points are internal to something, and you can't get to them to replace them. Yeah, that really sucks when that happens. I've had it happen many a times, and I hate to see that happen. But just take them out, and everybody wins.
Huh? Yeah. I've never had it happen. Knock on wood, but I know a lot of people that have.
I've had it happen to a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah, and if you do, the best.
Duracell is really bad. Yeah, Greg is definitely right. Duracell's probably the number one offender that I find.
The best thing you can do is contact cleaner and try to clean them out. Clean it out with like a Q-tip or something, like if it's on your Connect. But sometimes it'll go out into the board and ruin it.
So, Mike, you ever use the battery test to check your batteries? Very simple test. Just take it like a AA battery, stand it up, and drop it on a table. If it bounces, it's good. It's still got life to it. If it goes thud and just stops and doesn't bounce, it's pretty much dead. Yeah, that's serious, man. I'm not joking.
Never heard of that.
And now I'm not saying it's a very definitive test for how, like, oh, it bounced this high, I got 90% of my battery. It doesn't work like that, but if you got some batteries in a drawer and you pull them out and say, man, I don't know if these were good or not, or, just bounce, give it a quick bounce, and if it doesn't bounce, you'll find it real quick which ones are not good or bad.
Huh.
Yeah. It definitely works. I've tried it millions of times.
That's weird. I didn't know that. I'll have to try that. I will have to try that. Do you got anything to add, or are we ready to wrap up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up, and then I'm going to go round up a picture of that cross, and I'll send it to you or post it on the...
post it in the group so we can all see it.
Yeah,
that'd be way cool.
That's one, Mike, I want to say that's one thing that I need to do more, and I don't do it. Like, I find a lot of cool stuff, but I love going on there and seeing other people's stuff that they post, and I like, you may just get like a thumbs up from me, but, and a lot of times just because I don't have the chance to or time to comment, but I really should post a lot of the stuff that I find because I find some really good stuff. And
I don't know why you don't take the time. I would love for you to post some of your better store card tokens. Some of your better silver. Some of your, I don't know, you got a lot of stuff.
Much stuff sitting around that I should have. Well, it's almost like I feel like that after I found it, and if I don't get around to it right away, then it I don't know. Like I don't like posting stuff like way after I found it, but
we want to see it, man. You talk about it and you don't ever post it.
I know. Well, I'm gonna go get this thing and I'm gonna post a picture of it right now. What to do with your zinc pennies instead of throwing them out?
Exactly. Do it. I just wanted to say before we go, if you have any problems with the show or if you think it's a bad show from now on, get a hold of Greg Weems because he's the one in charge of getting. I'm kidding, Greg. I'm kidding, but yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm really excited. Greg joining the team. I think he'll be a huge asset. He's great at that. He's great with people, man, and where I'm not necessarily real great with people, and I'm really looking forward to that. And we really appreciate it, Greg, and looking forward to it. Let's wrap it up.
Okie dokie. I'm sorry, hold on, one more thing before we wrap it up.
Yeah,
I was just reading Old Iron Ray's comments. I've never tried to bounce the rechargeable ones because I usually know when they're dead, and I use them same rechargeable batteries, and I've been very happy with them on stuff, but I've never tried to see if they bounce or not.
Yeah, it's curious. Weird. I'll have to try that. But all right, good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It was always fun, man. I'm sorry I gave you a hard time. I wouldn't do it if I didn't love you, buddy. Good night, everybody.
Hey, I don't mind. Good night. We'll see you.
Good night.